So recently, Marvel has been up and down with their product. Last year, we had X-Men 97, not part of the MCU, but was a refresher to what Marvel can do because X-Men 97 was fantastic. It went into, the old plots and stuff that they were doing back then with the old cartoon, and then adding new dimensions, new questions and stuff that they can explore with the X-Men show, with Rogue and Magneto and Cyclops. But the show was amazing and it was highly regarded, and it's going to get a second season. So I was curious about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, because before they told us anything about the show, the few things that they did gave us like a hint of was that it was going to be similar to the movies, and that was just it. And then we saw the trailer, and I didn't know what to think of it because it reminded me of the MTV Spider-Man. If you see the MTV Spider-Man, it basically had that same type of animation except worse and outdated, a little tiny bit, But yeah, I was really curious because I like most of the Spider-Man adaptations, especially animation. I like the 1994 Spider-Man. I really, really like, and it's a part of my childhood, Spectacular Spider-Man. That was a fantastic adaptation of Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man, we don't talk about that. That's whatever. And then he been in a few appearances in the Avengers shows, like Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. All the Marvel stuff that he's in. So now we have your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, which I said before is based off of Homecoming, except there's a few little changes. One, Iron Man never meets Spider-Man. Instead, you will have Norman Osborn meeting Peter Parker in that same apartment that they were in the movies. Two, his friends, with Zendaya and look, I forgot that big guy's name, but his friend's not going to be in it. It's basically this girl named Nico and Harry Osborn, which we haven't still seen in the movies, but hopefully we will. And I was very excited for this project, except there was one article that came out before this show even released. And there was an article where the voice actor for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was basically saying, "Oh, I'm just happy that this show is not woke." The voice actor for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was basically saying, "Oh, I'm just happy that this show is not woke." So I'm like, what do you mean by that, man? What do you mean? What are we doing, man? You have an Asian character as your best friend in Peter Parker, Nico, and then you have a black Harry Osborn and a black Norman Osborn. What are you talking about, man? So that turned me off a little bit. So I'm just like, really? You gonna start this? We gonna start there with this show, man? Okay. Now I have like a little bias against it because of this voice actor that just won't shut up. So I waited for the show to come on for a few weeks now, and I finally watched it. And by the first episode, I will tell you, it was fantastic, man. They went through characters, they explored different characters that I never thought I'd be interested in. They had this character who's basically Tombstone, and they made him into this high school student and was a football player, was friends with Peter Parker at one point in high school. They get into his background, what his neighborhood was like and how he was able to come through with it. It was crazy how much detail they went through it with that character. And it's based, and with a black character like Tombstone, if you're black, what I mean, like the racial biasness, the way you walk through the neighborhood and the cops just be checking you out, seeing if you're not doing anything, all that stuff we've been going through, especially in the city. So that was amazing. I didn't know they was going to get into that. Okay, the interesting thing about your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is the parallel between Tombstone and Spider-Man. Now, they're living in two completely different lives. Spider-Man, living a normal life, has to be in an apartment with his aunt. Y'all know the whole story of how he goes. With Tombstone, well, he has to go to a bad neighborhood to his apartment, I think. And he meets up with his family. He has a little brother they gotta take care of, who's involved with a gang. And at those repercussions, he has to make some decisions, which leads him to turn into Tombstone. That's the best way I can talk about that plot line without spoiling it. But the fact that they compare these two and their stories and their development as people, Peter Parker being Spider-Man and Tombstone being who he is, that next season is going to be crazy when the next time they interact. And that was the most interesting part about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Also, the way Norman uses Spider-Man and the way Tony Stark uses Spider-Man, you can see that they're both using Peter Parker for their own selfish reasons. But Tony Stark uses it for good, obviously, because of what happened in Civil War. But Norman, even though you assume that he has good intentions, at the end of the day, he's still Norman Osborn, and y'all know who he's going to be later down the line. So I thought that was interesting as well, thinking like this, they don't talk about Iron Man as much, but the way they set up his introduction to Peter is the same way they introduced Peter and Norman. And so you obviously thinking like, yo, this can go a different scenario if Peter had met Norman. And I thought that was really interesting. Also, Nico was cool. I'll just say she had something going for her. If you read the comics, you know what she'll eventually turn into, which I'm very curious as well. But she was a good character too. I would say a little annoying sometimes, but for the most part, she was a cool character to be a part of. That Peter Parker friendship that's been going on. They introduced some villains that, in unique ways, like we already have Norman Osborn, we have Dr. Octopus, well, Dr. Octavius. I shouldn't say Dr. Octavius here, doing his thing. Then we have Rhino. Like, they got a whole bunch of characters that they do differently than you would see in the comics, which I actually like. And I will say that they have some cameos from the Avengers, and those are really neat. I can't really get too much into it, but for the most part, it fit well in the show. And y'all already know one of them is Doctor Strange, which in the beginning you're like, why is he in this? And then towards the end of the show, you understand why that makes sense. And it was a cool way for them to introduce that Spider-Man is in this unique universe. And the overall feel I get from the show is that it reminded me of my adventures with Superman, in the sense that it goes into this character's younger self. Obviously, he, was in high school in the movies, but usually they go to Peter Parker a little bit towards the end of high school to college. Now they're doing the younger thing again, except they don't have to worry about connection with movies and all that. Like, Peter Parker just does his own thing, which we needed in the movie so badly, and I'm glad that they did that here. Yeah, Tombstone was amazing, man. I really like how they went through the story. If you watch this show, I will tell you this. If you watch this show, they get inside. They talk about these characters in a different way, and it's just very unique, and I really enjoyed that. I'll say the bad thing is, towards the end, they did rush a little bit of some plots, but I can't really spoil it. All I will say is that they rush into some things a little bit towards the end. The animation can sometimes look kind of weird a little bit, especially with the fight scenes, but I didn't mind it because it got better as the show kept going. And also, I really hate the intro. They try to do the old Spider-Man theme and try to mix it up with like hip hop and all that. It reminded me of like Fox Kids when they try to remix all the theme songs that they had. Like it was just disgusting. I hated that. But Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man was surprisingly not bad. I enjoyed it. They said they're gonna do a second season. I can't wait for the second season to come out and see what else they can explore with this universe. And it's probably going to be a parallel universe, but to be honest, I don't want him to be a part of the MCU at all. Like, just do your own thing, and that would be great in itself. Just like X-Men 97. So, yeah, watch Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It's on Disney Plus. It's great. It's only 30 minutes. You'll not be disappointed. Yeah, that will be it for my review. So, peace, y'all.